Imagine sitting in a cold, sterile office. You are in your 20s. You have fought tooth and nail to escape a life of suffocating poverty, clawing your way into a career in television news. You are sitting across from your boss, a man who holds your entire future in his hands. And he looks at you with a mixture of pity and annoyance and delivers the words that are meant to destroy your career. He tells you that you are entirely unfit for television. He tells you that you are too emotional, that you cry when you cover tragic stories, that your hair is wrong, your size is wrong, and your name is unpronounceable. He demotes you on the spot. For most people, this is the end of the road. This is the moment where you pack your bags, accept that the world is a cruel place, and settle for a life of quiet desperation. But the woman sitting in that chair did not settle. She took the very thing they fired her for, her deep, overwhelming, uncontrollable emotional empathy, and she used it to build an empire. That woman was Oprah Winfrey. But to understand how she achieved the impossible, we have to look away from the billion-dollar studios and the global fame. We have to go back to the darkest, most terrifying corners of human existence. Because Oprah's story is not a fairy tale of sudden luck. It is a brutal, agonizing masterclass in psychological alchemy. It is the story of how a human being can take the poison of severe trauma and transmute it into the medicine that heals the world. We need to start at the bottom, the absolute bottom. Because you cannot understand the altitude of her success without measuring the depth of the abyss she climbed out of. Born in rural Mississippi in 1954, Oprah's early life was a landscape of extreme, unforgiving poverty. We are not talking about struggling to pay the bills. We are talking about a child who wore dresses made out of potato sacks. A child who was mocked relentlessly by other children for the roughness of her clothes and the desperation of her circumstances. She lived on an isolated farm with her grandmother, where the primary rule of survival was absolute obedience, enforced by physical punishment. But poverty was only the backdrop. The true nightmare began when she was sent to live with her mother in Milwaukee. In the cramped, unsupervised spaces of her youth, Oprah became the victim of horrific, repeated sexual abuse by relatives and family friends. She was a child, completely defenseless, carrying a secret so heavy it would crush the mind of most adults. The trauma of those years is unimaginable. It is the kind of trauma that statistics tell us leads directly to a life of addiction, incarceration, or early death. It is the kind of pain that hardens a human heart into stone, simply as a biological defense mechanism. And the statistics almost won. By her early teenage years, Oprah was spiraling. She was acting out, running away from home, searching for any escape from the agonizing reality of her existence. At the age of 14, a child herself, she became pregnant. The baby, a boy, was born prematurely and died shortly after birth. At 14 years old, Oprah Winfrey had experienced a lifetime's worth of grief, violation, abandonment, and loss. She was standing on the absolute precipice of ruin. This is the critical juncture. In psychology, there is a concept known as the victim identity. When you suffer profound injustice, the ego attaches itself to the pain. It is a completely natural response to trauma. The world hurt you, therefore the world owes you. You become defined by what was done to you. The shadow self takes over, whispering that you are broken, dirty, and unworthy of a good life. If Oprah had surrendered to this narrative, no one would have blamed her. It would have been the most logical outcome in the world. But something shifted. A single, profound intervention altered the trajectory of her psychological development. She was sent to Nashville to live with her father, Vernon Winfrey. Vernon was a strict disciplinarian. He did not offer soft comfort. He offered structure. He demanded excellence. He refused to look at her as a broken victim. Instead, he forced her to read books every week and write reports on them. He introduced her to the power of words. And in those books, Oprah found something more powerful than an escape. The light. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow self loses its power when it is brought into the light of consciousness. By speaking her shame aloud, Oprah was conducting mass shadow work on daytime television. By the time AM Chicago was renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show and syndicated nationally, She had completely redefined the medium. She defeated Phil Donahue, the undisputed king of talk shows, not by being a better journalist, but by being a better mirror. She made the audience the star. She operated on a frequency of deep, radical authenticity. In a world where everyone was pretending to be perfect, Oprah was getting rich by being proudly imperfect. She fluctuated in weight. She struggled with diets. She cried. She laughed. She made mistakes, and she let the world watch it all. This is the second great lesson. Your authenticity is your most valuable currency. The things you are trying to hide, the quirks you are ashamed of, the emotional depth you are told is too much. That is your unique signature. When you try to fit into the box society builds for you, you compete with everyone else. When you are unapologetically yourself, you have no competition. There is only one you. As her empire expanded, Oprah's internal philosophy deepened. She became a student of the universe. She didn't just interview celebrities, she interviewed spiritual leaders, psychologists, and philosophers. One of the most pivotal shifts in her life occurred when she read Gary Zukav's book, The Seat of the Soul. From Zukav, she learned the absolute law of intention. She learned that every action, every word, and every thought is driven by an underlying intention, and the universe responds to the intention, not the action. If you give to charity because you want to look good, the universe responds to your vanity, not your generosity. If you create a television segment to exploit someone's pain for ratings, the energy returned to you will be toxic. Oprah halted production on her show. She called her producers into a room and declared that from that day forward, the show would no longer be dictated by ratings or sensationalism. It would be dictated by intention. Before booking a guest, she demanded to know, what is our intention here? How is this serving the viewer? How is this elevating the human spirit? This was a terrifying business risk. Daytime television in the 90s was dominated by trash TV, screaming matches, and exploitation. To pivot away from that meant risking her audience. But the law of intention proved infallible. By elevating the standard of her show, she elevated her audience. She created a sanctuary of personal growth. She taught millions of housewives, businessmen, and young people about mindfulness, gratitude, and emotional intelligence before those terms were popular on the internet. She was essentially running a daily global megachurch of self-empowerment, and the wealth that followed was simply a byproduct of the massive value she was providing. She became a billionaire not by obsessing over money, but by obsessing over impact. She became the first Black female billionaire in North America, breaking every conceivable ceiling of race, gender, and class. But look closely at how she uses her power. She did not build a fortress to isolate herself from the world that hurt her. She built schools. She built the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for girls in South Africa. Why? Because she understood the concept of breaking the cycle. She looked at young girls living in poverty, surrounded by trauma, and she saw herself. She stepped in to be the Vernon Winfrey for an entire generation of girls, providing the structure, the education, and the unyielding belief that they were not defined by their circumstances. She took the exact pain of her childhood and built a monument of healing over it. This is the ultimate victory over trauma. You don't just survive it. You don't just heal from it. You use it as the blueprint to ensure no one else has to suffer the same way. You become the hero you needed when you were helpless. So, what is the practical application of Oprah's life for you, right now, wherever you are sitting? It begins with an audit of your own narrative. What is the story you are telling yourself about your past? Are you using your history as an anchor to hold you down, or as fuel to propel you forward? If you have been rejected, fired, or told you are not enough, Recognize that rejection is often the universe's way of redirecting you away from a life that is too small for you. The executives in Baltimore didn't ruin Oprah's life. They inadvertently saved it. They pushed her out of a rigid box and into the open ocean where she could build her own ship. Your current failure might be the exact catalyst required for your ultimate success. But you have to be willing to look at the failure without losing your sense of self-worth. Secondly, you must embrace the parts of yourself that the world calls too much. If you are deeply emotional, stop trying to numb yourself to fit into a cynical society. Your sensitivity is a radar system that allows you to connect with the subtle energies of the world. It is a gift. If you are loud, be loud with purpose. If you are quiet, use your silence to observe and strategize. Stop apologizing for your nature. The friction you feel between who you are and who society wants you to be is exactly where your genius lies. Stop sanding down your edges. Your edges are what make an impact. Thirdly, you have to practice the discipline of intention. Before you send that email, before you start that project, before you enter into that relationship, pause and ask yourself, what is my true intention here? Is it driven by fear? Is it driven by ego? Or is it driven by a desire to expand, to connect, and to serve? If your intention is pure, the outcome will take care of itself. You align yourself with the natural flow of the universe rather than swimming violently against it. This requires slowing down. It requires mindfulness. It requires the courage to look at your own motives with brutal honesty. Oprah Winfrey's legacy is not her network, her magazines, or her bank account. Her legacy is the proof that the human spirit is indestructible. She is living, breathing evidence that it does not matter where you start. It does not matter what horrors have been inflicted upon you in the dark. What matters is the alchemy you choose to perform in the light. In the realm of psychology, there is a phenomenon far less discussed than post-traumatic stress, and it is called post-traumatic growth. It is the concept that for a certain subset of individuals, surviving a psychological earthquake does not just leave them scarred, it leaves them structurally superior. When your foundational beliefs about safety, love, and the world are shattered into a million pieces, you are left with a terrifying freedom. You get to choose exactly how to rebuild the house. Oprah did not rebuild a fragile shelter of avoidance, bitterness, and fear. She built a fortress of radical empathy. She recognized that her deepest wounds were the exact entry points for her greatest light. Every time she listened to a guest share their own tragedy, she was actively stitching her own soul back together, proving that healing is not an isolated event, but a communal masterpiece. But how do you sustain this level of energetic output without collapsing? How do you remain a beacon of light when you have intimate knowledge of the absolute darkness? The answer lies in the unglamorous daily mechanics of her mindset. Oprah is famous for her absolute devotion to the practice of gratitude. This is not the superficial, toxic positivity that demands you smile through your pain. This is a fierce neurological rewiring. By forcing her brain to scan her environment for things to appreciate, the warmth of a cup of tea, the quiet of the morning, the fact that she was simply alive, she actively starved the fear centers of her brain. She deprived her amygdala of the oxygen it needed to keep her in a state of chronic survival. Gratitude became her anchor, tethering her to the present moment so that the ghosts of her past could not drag her backward into depression. It is a biological fact that you cannot feel deep, profound gratitude and paralyzing anxiety at the exact same time. Oprah weaponized this biological loophole to keep her mind clear and her heart open. As she evolved, her platform became a vessel for global spiritual awakening. She introduced the world to thinkers who fundamentally challenge the way we perceive reality. When she partnered with spiritual teachers to deconstruct the human ego on a planetary scale, she taught her audience how to become the observer of their own thoughts. This is the ultimate secret to emotional regulation. When you realize that you are not the anxious voice in your head, but rather the silent awareness that is listening to that voice, you break the chains of your conditioning. You stop being a puppet to your traumatic triggers. If someone insults you, or if you lose a job, or if you face a profound rejection, the ego screams in agony, but the observer simply watches the ego scream. Oprah mastered this internal detachment. She learned to sit in the eye of the hurricane, completely untouched by the swirling chaos of fame, relentless criticism, and the heavy emotional burdens of the world she was trying to uplift. Perhaps the most difficult and profound lesson Oprah embodies is the true nature of forgiveness. Society often misinterprets forgiveness as a pardon for the abuser, a polite way of saying that what happened was acceptable, or a requirement to let toxic people back into your life. Oprah redefined it entirely. For her, forgiveness is the radical decision to stop demanding that the past be any different than it was. It is the severing of the energetic umbilical cord that keeps you tied to your abuser. As long as you harbor intense, burning hatred, you are bound to the person who hurt you. They are living rent-free in your mind, continuing to extract a toll from your daily joy decades after the event. Oprah forgave the unforgivable not because the perpetrators deserved it, but because she deserved peace. She realized that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. By releasing the demand for a better past, she reclaimed 100% of her energy to build an extraordinary future. So, as this narrative draws to a close, the lens turns back to you. The screen in front of you is a mirror, just as Oprah was a mirror for the world. What are you holding on to that is keeping your wings clipped? What old story? What past rejection? What inherited trauma are you using as an excuse to play small and stay safe? You are not a victim of your biology, and you are not a prisoner of your history. You are the author of this exact moment. The transition from pain to power does not happen overnight in a flash of cinematic lightning. It happens in the quiet, microscopic decisions you make every single day. It happens when you choose to breathe instead of react blindly. It happens when you choose to find the hidden lesson inside the devastating loss. It happens when you finally look at your own shadow, not with terror or shame, but with radical compassion, and invite it out of the dark. You have the capacity to perform this emotional alchemy. The formula is already encoded inside you. If a little girl in Mississippi could rise from the ashes of unimaginable abuse, grinding poverty, and relentless societal rejection to become a global symbol of healing and power, then there is absolutely nothing in your life that cannot be transformed. Do not let your pain go to waste. Harvest it, refine it, turn it into the fuel that powers your ultimate liberation. The world does not need more perfect people who have never been broken or tested. The world desperately needs people who have been shattered into 1,000 pieces and have figured out how to glue themselves back together with gold. Step into your power, reclaim your narrative, and remember, the secret to an easy life is not the absence of difficulty, but the absolute unshakable mastery of your internal world. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel.